Hello and welcome to another episode of the Duct Tape Marketing Podcast. This is John Jantz, and my guest today is Chase Buckner. He's a director of marketing at HighLevel, the all-in-one white label sales and marketing platform for agencies. Prior to joining the team at HighLevel, Chase and a partner built a full-service agency from scratch. They grew to over 7 figures in annual recurring revenue. So, Chase, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, John.
So let's talk first about marketing automation. This is a topic I've been talking about for a while. It's a topic that some companies have embraced, some haven't, some for good, some for bad. What are some of the, and you can go anywhere you want with this, what are some of the best ways you are seeing people using the automation technology that's available to us today?
Yeah, I think for the folks that aren't yet, they will be. I feel like it's an inevitable part of the growth of an agency is you get to a point where you're like, why is this still not working? Why are we still churning clients? Like, we know we're delivering good leads at a good price, but yet there's still something not quite right. And when you start to dig into that, you find studies like the one done by the MIT professor that basically show, look, there's a 5-minute shot clock, right? You generate a lead, you've got 5 minutes to engage it. And if you don't, statistically, you're never going to. And then when you look through that lens at what's actually happening at your clients' businesses, there's just no way that they can reply to every lead within 5 minutes. And so once you understand that, then your mind opens up to other solutions and you start realizing, hey, we need to find ways to automate some of this and take it off of their hands. And so it's as simple as really just automating text messages, emails, voicemail drops. We have this really cool thing called a call connect that I could talk about. But yeah, it's just basically like doing something more than just sending the lead as an email to your client and thinking that's your job done.
Well, particularly because, email is a terrible place to try to do business, right? Because it's so cluttered. So I have clients that, one of their biggest complaints right now is that I'm everywhere, right? Because they told me I should be everywhere. And now, unfortunately, that means everybody's communicating with me everywhere. How do I even manage it? I've actually had clients not let me turn Google business messaging on because they were like, even if people want to talk to me there, I don't know how I would handle it. So, how do we deal with that? How do business owners deal with that? Because it's a real thing.
Well, my intention wasn't to come on to just be a commercial for HighLevel, but we're very cognizant of that. And that's why we're trying to pull them all into one chat stream. So right now we've got most of them. We've got email, SMS, Google Chat, Facebook Messenger, Instagram DM, WhatsApp's in beta, and then stuff's, TikTok, all that kind of stuff is coming down the line. But yeah, 100%, because you can't expect them to manage it all over the place. Who could? It's insane. So we're trying to pull them all in, including reviews. It's important that they go in there too, because then they'll actually reply to reviews. All that stuff.
Reviews are a conversation.
Yeah, totally. I imagine that, right?
Yeah. And I think there's no question. I think there's some other people trying to tackle that as well, but there's no question that is a great use of automation. Because again, a lot of times people think of automation as like, oh, great, I never have to talk to anybody ever again. I can automate all my processes, right? Yeah. And I think the way I always tell people to look at automation is how can you create a better experience? Like, things like scheduling appointments. I want to be able to go on in the middle of the night. Well, that's not true. I'm never up in the middle of the night. I'm going to go on at 8 o'clock in the evening and schedule an appointment with my eye doctor or whatever. I don't want to have to make a call. So that's a place where automation is a better experience. But there are times when we want that hug. We want that, people interaction. So, how do you... Because the technology will allow us to automate everything, right? To some degree. I mean, we could start bringing in AI to even automate it more, right? So how do we use this stuff without making it feel robotic?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think in a couple of different ways, like we have like an AI booking thing that you can turn on that you can conversationally book with, right? So let's say, you claim a promotion and I automate you a text that says, hey, John, thanks for claiming that free teeth whitening voucher. Next step is to get you booked. Is now a good time to find a day and time that works for you? If you say yes, AI can take over and go into the calendar and say, okay, great, here's what we have over the next 2 days. And you could say, all right, I'll take Tuesday at 9, and it will understand that and book. But there are other ways, right? I like to talk about starting with FAQs. When you work within a niche, you quickly find out, hey, my customers get asked these same questions over and over. So then I can just ask my clients, hey, when someone asks you this, how do you guys reply? And then I can build just a simple little workflow that says, hey, if a message comes in from any of these channels that contains the word gluten-free, just reply with their, yes, we have, here's the link to our gluten-free menu or whatever it may be. And you can really make a lot of progress right there with stuff like that. Imagine how much time you can save a restaurant if they don't have to respond to every gluten-free, vegetarian, these types of questions that they get over and over every single day.
I thought you were going with the gluten-free teeth whitening.
Sorry, I switched niches on you. Metaphor.
Probably somebody is selling that though, right? Let's talk a little bit about speed today. And again, I know your answer to this, but I want to hear what kind of your research, your thinking, is on this topic. I think when somebody goes to a website or goes to the Google and, asks a question, what advantage is there to the business that responds immediately or at least very quickly? And again, I know it's a stupid question, but I just want to hear, what you've seen in the impact of that.
Well, again, statistically, the studies will show you that if you respond within the first 5 minutes, specifically, let's say you respond in the first 1 minute, I think you have like a 90-something% chance of closing that lead as opposed to after 5 minutes. And I think a lot of that is because when you get a reply right away, you don't go to the next competitor or down the list, right? Because you're engaged, whether you know that reply was automated or not, in your mind, you've engaged with the business, which was your goal. And so, to me, it's everything, and statistics will back that up. And again, when you go look and see what your clients are actually doing with those email lead notifications that you're sending, it's hours or days that they're taking to reply to folks. And by that time, for sure, they've gone on to the next competitor. And that's why when you take an honest look at what's happening in most marketing agencies in relationship with their clients, that's what's going on. And that's what leads to the churn, right? And the clients are telling you, hey, these leads stink, none of them closed. And you dig in and you're like, what do you guys think of following up? And it's just never going to work.
Yeah. Let's talk about SMS or text in general. I think a lot of people saw that, we're on the cutting edge, because we have a short code, or, that's another way people can communicate. I would suggest that in where we stand today in 2022, that has become actually the preferred method of communication for a very large segment of the market. And that if we're not actually viewing that as a primary channel, we are probably missing out. What do you say to that idea?
100%. This makes me want to bang my head against the desk, because when somebody calls me, I literally inside feel my blood pressure rise, right? It's like, why didn't you just text me? And so if that's the case for most of us, which I think if we're all honest, it is, why are we doing it to our customers? Why are we expecting our customers to pick up the phone and call us when we know they just want to text? And so, we get excited about all these new channels that we're going to add, like TikTok messaging and this and that. But the reality is, text messaging alone is a quantum leap forward for most businesses. Most businesses do not have the ability to text with their customers yet without using somebody's personal cell phone in a two-way conversation, right? And so that's why the first step that we always tell agencies to do is put the chat widget on your customer's website, because the HighLevel chat widget is just a gateway into an SMS conversation. When they fill out the form, it comes in as an SMS, and when you reply, it goes back as a text. Just putting that on a client's site alone is oftentimes enough to keep them from churning, because all of a sudden they're getting what they think are like these new leads, when in reality, it was just traffic that was bouncing off the site because they didn't want to have to pick up the phone. And then you do that again with Google Chat. And now those two things combine for a significant amount of new leads. But again, it was just traffic going to their Google property that was just bouncing. So yeah, I think it's absolutely should be the number one thing that marketers are thinking about right now is, hey, how do we text enable every new client? Because that alone could be enough to keep them from churning.
Yeah, and I think anyone who's listening to this take a stroll to your Google Analytics if you haven't for a while, your client's Google Analytics if you haven't in a while, and go to that little tab that shows you the device their traffic is coming from. And you will find that most businesses have topped the majority of their traffic being on a mobile device. Some are as high as 80% on a mobile device. So, that device they have in their hand, is text enabled, and it's definitely the way that people prefer to communicate. I mean, I don't know what the statistics are, but the actual phone part of the phone is what, like the fourth or fifth, most used component on the phone. So, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, I know you work primarily with agencies, if not exclusively with agents.
Primarily. I mean, I think there's
probably some franchises, things like that.
Franchises, a lot of folks, hey, I've been a chiropractor for 35 years, and now I want to take my knowledge and sell it to other chiropractors. Well, now you're an agency. Congratulations, Dr. Bobby.
Yeah.
There's a small
percentage
of those.
So let's talk about some of the ways that you are helping agencies differentiate, because, I tell agencies this all the time. I mean, if you're still hanging your hat on, we'll do your WordPress website for you, you're probably on a race to the the financial bottom, because I guarantee you somebody will do it for $147 today. So, how are you finding agencies really standing out, differentiating themselves today?
That's such a good point. And that was me for years. We did WordPress sites, one-off projects, happy to get $5,000 to do the site. Of course, it turns into a nightmare, and here you are 13 months later going, why are we still working on this? It's a mindset shift. And I think if you haven't looked around recently and realized that the world is in a race to the SaaS model, newsflash, businesses around the world are racing to find a way to get into SaaS. I recently saw a tweet, I don't know if you saw this, but BMW is now a SaaS company, because in order to turn on your heated seats in next year's models, you're going to have to subscribe to the heated seat subscription and enable it through the app. So that's where we're at, right? Literally every company in the world is like, how do we get into this recurring revenue model around software? And so for us, it makes all the sense in the world, right? Because we know every business needs software to succeed. The business owner has no idea what software they need, nor do they know how to set it up and get it running correctly. So they traditionally turn to the agency for this advice. The agency usually picks the software, sets it up. Maybe they get paid for the setup. Then the agency loses the client, statistically 3 to 5 months later, but the client continues to pay for that software for years. And, so that's kind of what we're all about at HighLevel, which is, hey, how do we make it so that the agency can provide the software themselves, retain the clients for years. Maybe they don't retain them on that Facebook ad package, but they retain them on a software fee for the automated stuff that we know everybody needs, like two-way text messaging.
All right. Let me push back just a bit, because to help some folks out on this. Sure. So it's like, wait, I'm going to sell software. How big of a support department does HighLevel have just to take support technical billing software questions, right? And what I'm getting at is do I have to now have a support department for the clients that I sign up for this?
Yeah, you do.
Not for HighLevel. I just mean if I'm going to take the SaaS model, how am I going to support that?
Yeah, and that's why, again, there are lots of ways you can do this, right? I'm not telling you that you have to use HighLevel. In the HighLevel world, you're absolutely right. We support you, but we don't support your customers. Now, that's created opportunities for folks in our community to solve that problem. And so there are several entities within the HighLevel community who run white-labeled support programs for HighLevel. So they'll install ticketing system and live chat within the app for you, and they will handle all of the software-related support pretty affordably. I think the one charges, $300 a month, and they'll support unlimited clients. So it's not something that, is as scary as it sounds.
Yeah.
And the pros definitely outweigh the cons, I would say. Because if you think about
but I'm sure
a lot of it's automated, right? So as long as you get the onboarding right, text messages come in and out. It's not like, how often do you have to call Facebook because you can't figure out how to send the message back, right? So a lot of it is people kind of overthink it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about scaling. I talk to a lot of agencies, people that, they get to a certain point and they're just like, I can't scale this thing because I got everything I can wrap my arms around and I can't get any bigger, or I try to hire people and then I lose them. And in what way, I keep tossing you these softball promotional questions, which I don't
really
mean to
appreciate it, John, by the
do,
way.
but I know that you're really addressing this. I mean, how can people think this way, think differently about scaling? It's not just like get more clients, get more people to serve the clients. How can they think automated ways to scale?
So I'll give you a story from my past life at the agency. I remember we used to host our WordPress sites with WP Engine, and they make you buy blocks of 100 website packages essentially,
Right.
to get the best pricing. So it was very important to us that we weren't wasting slots. So every so often, I would go in there and do a cleanup and say, oh, this client left us, get rid of that. That's a free slot now. So I remember very vividly one day going through and looking at the total count going, man, there are hundreds of websites in here. There are hundreds of people. And we used to charge $50 a month as a hosting package. Came with like a half an hour's worth of support if you needed it or something. So I'm like, holy smokes, there are hundreds of people in here paying us $50 a month, many of whom I can't even remember who they are. Like, it's literally been years since we built the site. They haven't reached out to us in years, but yet their credit card has run every month since for $50. And I literally remember going to Matt, my partner, the CEO, being like, Matt, this is our best revenue. We should really think more intently about what's going on here, because there's enough revenue being generated here to literally support you and I alone if, we went into like nuclear scenario or whatever. And of course, like a fire popped up and we ran, and, that was the last we spoke of it. But it's always stuck in my mind, because that's what lit the light bulb for me is, okay, what's the better version of that? Like, what's the higher ticketed version of that? Because that's scalable. Well, it was semi-scalable, right? But what's the more scalable version of that? And that's what it is. It's software. The problem is with traditional agency services, like you said, every X amount of projects you sell, you have to add an employee and able to deliver. And we were caught in that, I call it scaling sideways phase, for several years, where the top line revenue kept going up, but I'm looking around going, where's the profits going down? Our margins are shrinking. Yes, the company, is on that path to 7 figures and beyond, but it's just more stress and less margin. And so that, combined with the hosting thing, really got me thinking. And that's why as soon as I saw HighLevel, I knew what was going to happen. And when I got the opportunity to join the team, I jumped on it, because I knew every agency, this is what we're looking for, right? So if I were to go back and do it again, I would still sell websites, because I love to build websites and I know how to sell them. But I would sell them as a website on demand. It would cost $300 a month. It would be more than just the website. It's the chat widget on there. It's the CRM behind it. It's whatever. But just like Netflix, if you stop paying, the whole thing goes away, right? You can't watch movies anymore. And so that's when I go back to, like, it's a mindset shift. You don't sell website projects, you sell websites on demand. Like, that's, I think, the shift that most people should be trying to figure out how we can make. Like, what do we do now, and what's the on-demand version of that look like?
Yeah, and I think one of the things about that positioning is it actually positions the website as the tool it should be, as opposed to nice, pretty thing that has content that people come visit, and more of this is the hub of like generating a lead.
100%. I always tell people, like, you'd be stupid to go buy just a website today, because what's going to happen when the people get to it, right? Like, where's the CRM that's going to house the leads? Where's the automation that's going to convert them into bookings? Where's the reporting that's going to show you actually what's going on here? And that's why, a lot of people in the HighLevel community think of it not as software as a service, but as a system as a service. It's a little bit more than just software, because when you combine it with the expertise of an agency, you've got a system. And that's kind of, I think, where you want to get to. The other thing is, typically the person who builds the website and or introduces the CRM is the most trusted person. And if you think of that. I like to think of it as like the digital general contractor. You know, when a supermarket or a mall is being built, a general contractor gets hired, and then they bring in the plumber, the electrician, the whoever. And if, let's say, the plumber is the Facebook ad guy in this example, this metaphor here. Let's say the plumber does a bad job. Well, no worries. I'll fire him and I'll bring in another one, and we won't lose too much time here. And that's really where you want to be. You want to be the digital general contractor who never gets fired, who always gets paid. And if your client says, "Oh, we also want SEO, or we also want Google Ads," oh, great! I have an awesome network of folks I trust. I'm going to introduce you to 3 SEO companies. You tell me which one you want to go with, and we'll take care of it. That's the kind of model that I would be in with my website as on-demand business. I'd have a nice network of ancillary service providers that I can bring in and out. And, if they were to do a bad job, it's not me that's on the chopping block.
Yeah. We've always hung our hat on strategy. The person who develops the strategy, is really the producer, the director, bringing in every piece to then implement it. But it's really the same idea. Chase, I keep getting your name wrong. Thanks for taking the moment to stop by the Duct Tape Marketing Podcast. You want to tell people, it'll be obvious probably, and we'll have it in the show notes where people can find you and learn more about what you're up to.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me, John. GoHighLevel.com is our website. We have a 14-day free trial over there. We'd love for you to check it out. If this is resonating, we are kind of trying to invent a new world of SaaSpreneurship. So we would say, if the SaaSpreneur model sounds interesting to you, come check it out. And hopefully we'll be back soon, John.
Yeah, awesome. And for those of you out there listening, we are users. We are on this journey with HighLevel ourselves, building out a white label version. So, questions, thoughts, want to hit me up. My email is just john@ducttapemarketing.com. We'd love to talk about it. So thanks for stopping by. We will see you someday out there on the road.